けど久しぶりにバイブス上げてこう嬉しそうできる追加
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Castaway Anime Podcast. I'm Neon Manta.
And I'm Crunchy Bagels.
And we're taking a trip to the movies, returning to our old pal Jujutsu Kaisen, checking out the prequel movie, Jujutsu Kaisen 0. And if you want to hear us talk about Season 2 as it's coming out, / when it's done, because of scheduling, then go ahead and like the video, head on down to the comments to let us know what you think, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode of the Castaway Anime Podcast. Now grab a drink, kick back, listen up, because this may take a while.
And I also got almost no sleep last night, so this is gonna be a disaster. But
yeah,
that's
you'll
okay.
be like me when we did that one episode of the Bleach podcast when I had
literally
no sleep.
literally that.
Yeah, so Jujutsu Kaisen, we watched the first season, we did a couple podcasts on it covering Season 1. We both were pretty positive on it. You gave it like a 9, right?
No, I gave it an 8.
Oh, okay, alright, we both gave it an 8 then. Yeah, we both walked away pretty positive from it. We, what was our general consensus on the criticisms? Like, it's when it's good, it's like, when it leans on the wackier, more out there concepts that it introduces, it's at its most fun.
Yeah,
but
like
when
the
it's,
most, like the weirder the characters, the more fun the show is generally. And that's displayed through mostly its second half with the big sort of tournament-esque arc, as well as giving Nobara and Megumi some, you know, actually cool moments and characterizations. Megumi especially, not Megumi especially, Nobara especially. I loved her moment.
Oh god, it's already started.
And
with the
more
movie,
of that.
and the movie Zero takes place a year before the events of Season 1, and we finally get centered on Mr. Yuta Okkotsu, who we have seen name-dropped and even shown a couple times in Season 1. And it was always a big mystery from the viewer's perspective, like, who the fuck is this Okkotsu guy that people keep bringing up? Like, and why is he such a big deal?
We'll see. If you're attentive, you realize the mystery and go, ooh, who's that? But if you're like me, you don't realize there was one to begin with.
Rika,
Yes, Yuta?
lend me your strength.
I found. Did you not remember that they name dropped him a few times in Season 1?
No, I did not remember that. And to be fair, I also just didn't know anything about Jujutsu Kaisen 0, so it's not like the name specifically would stick out to me like, oh, I know that guy's coming up.
Yeah, so the thing about Jujutsu Kaisen 0 is that it's both a prequel to Jujutsu Kaisen and technically the beginning of the story of Jujutsu Kaisen, because back in ye old Weekly Shonen Jump, Mr. Gege, forget his last name, I want to say Atunami or Akatami or something like that.
I think it's
know
Akatami.
His first name's Gege. Okay, I know for a fact his first name's Gege, which is hilarious. So he wrote a little story called something like, it wasn't in quite exactly Jujutsu Kaisen, it was like Jujutsu Sorcerer or something. It would fans would come to dub it as Jujutsu Kaisen 0 because it was a one-shot, or at least a sort of introduction, like a pilot test run for what would go on to become JJK, starring Yuta Okkotsu as the main character, and having a bunch of characters that we know, like Maki, Panda, Inumaki, Gojo, and Geto, who all show up in Season 1. I am not 100% on if all of the Season 1 characters who we see show up later, like from the Kyoto school, if they were all in the original. I did neither of us have read JJK the manga, nor do we read 0. We're all just coming at this from an anime-only perspective. I'm willing to bet that those were probably cameos, or at the very least, ideas for character designs they had and didn't flesh them out yet. But what it comes down to is that this was basically pre-Yuji, pre-Nobara, pre-Megumi. This was going to be the story of Jujutsu Kaisen. Then it got picked up by Shonen Jump, and they're like, okay, cool. Now you make your whole story.
Yeah, and as a prequel, What do you think about it?
As a prequel, it's I'd say a decent leading of events to season 1. It doesn't from the viewer's perspective, it doesn't exactly solve the confusing amount of times that characters would bring up Yuta, and we'd have like literally no frame of reference outside of the he was a second year at Jujutsu Tech and is apparently really strong. Like apparently as strong when they said in season 1 he was like the only person who could take on Todo, so he was like either as strong or even stronger. So from that perspective it was a little confusing, and this it brings it clarity. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I would think that it's better to start with the movie then go on to season 1.
Really? Okay, I have the exact opposite opinion. I think it's much better to start with season 1 than with the movie. Because I feel like my knowing the characters... I feel like season 1 just introduces them in almost a more natural way. Where it feels like after... It feels like my experience with the movie was enhanced by knowing them from season 1, and I don't think my experience with season 1 would have necessarily been enhanced with the movie, if that makes sense. It probably would be a little, but I feel like the movie gains more from seeing season 1 first than season 1 would gain from having seen the movie
I
first.
feel like the only character who suffers from this is Panda, because
Well, Panda does almost nothing in the movie.
Yeah, exactly. That because Yuta gets his little side adventure with Maki, he gets a side adventure with Inumaki, with Toge. I assumed that he was gonna get something with Panda, but I guess there was no time in the structure of the movie for that. Which brings me to my big issue with the movie, is that the first half is kind of really boring.
Really? Honestly, I kinda like the first half more.
Okay, well, this is gonna be fun. So my issue with the first half of the movie is that it feels like, well, I guess this can kind of extend to the movie as a whole. This does not feel like a movie. It more
That
so
is true.
towards the
That is absolutely
second
true.
This feels like this was not unlike how season 2 of JJK started with a flashback sequence of even further back than this in the chronology of Gojo and Geito's time as students at Jujutsu Tech. This feels like a collection of episodes that were just strung together like a movie. Kind of like the, I don't think you've seen it yet, but the Kaguya-sama Love is War. What they put it out as a movie, but it was really just like 4 episodes strung together. Even like, not even trying to hide the fact that there are 4 episodes together, because they kind of have the same episode sequences, like beat for beat. Like this one at least kind of attempts to put it under the guise of one movie, but you could very tell that you could chop this off evenly at like certain connective tissue points, and you could easily just make this like 4 episodes of the TV
you
show.
can feel when each chapter of the original manga began and ended. And
yeah, exactly.
yeah, it just feels kind of like you're binging a TV show, which is a really weird feeling when you also take into account that the movie's cinematography is clearly trying to be cinematic and is beautiful, don't get me wrong, but it does feel a little awkward.
Yeah, it feels less like I'm watching a movie and I'm watching just the most expensive episodes of Jujutsu Kaisen.
Yeah, like that's a great way to put it. But
I don't get me wrong, like the cinematography is pretty nice, especially when we get to the second half, and the animation is the best it's ever been.
But see, I don't think that really lends to the movie being boring in its first half. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's definitely a bit of an awkward feeling. But, like, I'd say that's more so an issue with it holistically as opposed to the first half is boring because of this.
It is. I get what you're saying, but like as a viewer of someone who watched season 1 and then watched the prequel movie, because this is the release order that the anime that is Jujutsu Kaisen came out in, I already know who Inumaki and Panda are. So getting introduced to them like this, I just can't help but feel like we're retreading old ground.
I don't think
we
we necessarily
we got
are.
the best. The best we get is like a little bit of insight into Inumaki's backstory and how, because he grew up as a cursed speech user, he kind of didn't have. He grew up with like a pretty rough childhood. Had to limit his speech without accidentally cursing someone. So he bonds with Yuta over that because he's kind of going through something similar. Panda, we already established, like, does nothing. And Maki's entire thing, we already get that, and I would argue even better through Mai in Season 1 than we get through her hanging out with Yuta in the movie here. The only thing that's set up is, I don't know, a possible relationship between Maki and Yuta, which not particularly invested in.
I actually wish they went through with the relationship and like did more.
What would Rika think? Yuta ain't no two-timing hoe.
True, Rika would have thoughts. Although, well, okay, that's probably for way later in the podcast.
She'd have thoughts on that
thoughts. I have thoughts on the stuff with Rika, but counterpoint to what you're saying, I think that this Maki, at the very least to me, felt a lot more harsh and like cold in this film than she does in the anime. Like, because in the anime, it's still like new people meeting Maki for the first time. So it's still how she interacts with people who she's not friends with. And you can see she's a lot more like affable. Obviously, she's still a little, harsh. I mean, that's just how she speaks. But in this film, you can feel it. Like, it feels like she has something, like she's out for Yuta in some weird way, where she really gets a bad impression of him early on. And I think seeing that from Maki was interesting and did add to her character.
Speaking of the other characters, can we talk about how Inumaki went on to get a downgrade in design over the years, where he looks better in the movie than he does in the TV show?
He looks a lot more like almost like a shonen protagonist in this one.
Yeah, I guess
he got the spiky
didn't
hair.
want him to stand out too much, like the messy hair. Now he's just got the lame ass bowl cut in the TV show.
Honestly, I don't think I have a preference for either design. I like both of them. They both give off different vibes, and I like them both for different reasons.
I will also never forgive Gege for taking away Maki's baggy socks.
That was one of the first things you said about the film to me in chat. Like, this film is worth it for her baggy socks alone.
And I stick with that 100%. Bro, the shot where she kicks open the door while Yuta's just sitting in the classroom, kinography.
So what do you feel about Yuta himself?
The entire time I was watching him, I was like, oh, I get why they needed to change the main character to Yuji now.
So
there's not much going on inside that head of his.
On paper, I like his character a lot. In execution, could have been better. Could have been a fair bit better. It could have been a whole lot better, actually. Wow, it's insane how much better it could have been. And this starts to attack.
You're exactly right, Crunchy. It could have been
a
whole lot better, and it does get a whole lot better. His name is Yuji Itadori.
God, like, I remember in the first Jujutsu Kaisen podcast, we were kind of criticizing Yuji a bit for not being all that interesting. And now we watch his progenitor and we're like, oh my lord, Yuji's so much better.
Yeah, like, at least he had, a bit of a personality before he joined up as a Jujutsu sorcerer. And, like, yeah, compared to others of both his generation and maybe just, like, shonen as a whole, from where we are right now in the story, he doesn't have a whole lot going on. He gets a lot better the second half of season 1 than he does the first half, but Among shonen protagonists, he's not the most complex or the most compelling. But compared to Yuta, he might as well be fucking Naruto, Luffy, Ichigo, Goku man.
So, Okkotsu Yuta is this guy who's been cursed, supposedly cursed. We'll get to that, but cursed by the spirit Rika, who is his childhood friend / lover, although it was kid love, but that has lasted, basically she died and that love lasted through, like, up to his teen years, as Rika being this sort of cursed spirit. And he's a bit of a weakling, very gloomy, keeps to himself. And the reason why he keeps to himself is because Rika kind of, sometimes when trying to help Yuta out, she may or may not irreparably maim people and stuff them into lockers. she is absolutely a yandere.
I gotta say, very base of Gege for confirming that women and relationships are in fact curses, and they will do nothing but haunt you for the rest of your days.
This is the messaging we need in the world. And so, Yuta feels a lot of guilt for the fact that there's this power outside of his control that is harming people in ways that he cannot understand. And so he keeps to himself, but every so often, he still ends up maiming someone. And this eventually gets him caught by the Jujutsu Academy, and they're like, yo, broski. Well, first he's set to be executed because, he's too dangerous. But then Gojo, being the freewheeling guy as he is and seeing the potential in him, is like, look, we can use your power for good. And, eventually he gets his goal of undoing the curse bit by bit. And yeah, there's so much potential here, and none of it goes anywhere.
Yeah, he undergoes the most basic bitch ass shonen arc that you could possibly imagine. He's like, if Weekly Shonen Jump had like a big machine, like an AI generated machine at their headquarters, and you press a button that just says shit out a manga shonen protagonist here, this would be the product that you'd get.
I'm not even sure if I'd go... Well, granted, I'm not overly familiar with shonen. As being, like, a weakling who keeps to himself, like, typical of shonen protagonists.
That aspect is a little different, but...
and that's what I thought.
Okay, well, actually, it's not too different, because Deku is kind of the same way,
and that's
except...
the character I had on my mind that would be the most similar to that.
And not exactly, but kind of Naruto. He like Rika, he has like a thing inside of him that did isolate him as a child. Except in this case, Yuta wanted to be away from people so he wouldn't hurt them. Naruto wanted to be around people, but people were scared of him because of the monster that he had inside of him. In Deku's case, he was just a weak bitch in a world of mutant superheroes. So,
but see, I think he just by combining those two elements, you have there's this line, I quoted it somewhere along the line, or maybe I didn't quote it, but it's basically this idea that Okkotsu Yuta, he feels guilty for being alive. Right? He's so racked with guilt that even just existing to him is painful, because it's like, I've done so many terrible things, I can't be around anyone, just completely lock myself up and, carry this burden. And that really connected with me. It shouldn't have, because the movie goes nowhere with it. In fact, oh god, the ending of this movie really irked me on that front, but we'll get to that. But or I guess we can just sort of jump into it.
Yeah, but it's kind of hard to structure this because it's more of it's a movie, and it's more of episodes of a movie anyway. Plus, like, how much do we want to talk about the first half? Like, literally the only thing worth talking about in the first half is Yuta and Rika. and they just have their introductory shonen episodes. And the second half is where the meat of this movie is.
Well, see, I love the first half, but only on paper. And that's so much of this. That's how I can describe most of this movie. It's the best part of the Jujutsu Kaisen canon on paper, but in execution, on the other hand, that's literally every single aspect of this movie you could do it to. You can feel that my boy Gege wasn't exactly a polished writer at this point in time, that he was still very much finding his footing.
And given the events of the manga at the time of this recording, some would argue he ain't exactly that much of a polished writer now.
I have no idea what happens in the manga, so
I won't spoil it. I won't spoil it, but just know that if everything is happening from the little context I have, I'm having a party.
What kind of party?
A celebration. I'm popping the champagne bottles, but that's all I'll say.
Okay, but like, see, that early point in the story is to establish his relationships with the other people around him, and that's
cool. Except he doesn't show up in season 1, so what's the point?
I mean, in the context of the movie, I totally see where you're coming from. I feel like if this movie's story felt more complete, I wouldn't, be bothered by that. I could see this as its own sort of almost standalone thing, but not quite, because Yuta may or may not come back in the show proper at some... I mean, he's mentioned,
I
have
to. No doubt that he would... Yeah, like, there was no point of... Yeah, like, doing all this and then name-dropping him so many times in season 1. I looked back on YouTube of a compilation of all times that Yuta was mentioned. He even gets a goddamn shot. I didn't realize this until I saw the movie. He gets a shot in the second opening.
He does?
One, mind you.
I need to look at that.
It's only for, like, a second or two, but it's a shot of him walking with Miguel in Kenya.
Alright, I need to... Well, here, I'll check that after the podcast, because that seems pretty interesting. But, like, the thing is, I don't think his relationships with the people around him were all that interesting, and they probably would have been if the story had done a better job of setting up Yuta with, like, an interesting, personality, really fleshing out that personal struggle. But as is, it sort of feels like just kind of standard fare. Because on paper, the idea is, Yuta can, by training to be a Jujutsu sorcerer, he can, like, figuring out how to deal with this Rika dude, undoing the curse, and becoming friends with everyone around him, he can learn to love himself and not feel guilt for all the things that he accidentally caused. And he can learn to better himself and become a stronger person. That through line is not emphasized nearly enough. I'm imagining a version of the movie in my head that is absolute keenography, where he goes from being completely pathetic to, like, he gets closer to Inumaki, and that causes him to open up a little more, and then we get a scene of him and Inumaki palling around. He's got this wide smile on his face, and, him and Inumaki, even though Inumaki can't even talk in anything but rice ball ingredients, they're still having a ball, because Yuta can just carry the conversation by himself. I wanted to see that scene. That didn't exist.
We only get, like, the causes of his, like, developing relationship.
And then a 3-month time skip.
And never the effect. We never see we only see the before, never the after. Well, no, that's the problem. We see too much of the after and not enough of the little connective tissue in between.
It just doesn't coalesce into something that, like, it could have been so great. It does not execute on it.
Bro, Yuji and Nobara's brief interactions off of just instantly meeting each other of loving city life in Tokyo because they both didn't get to experience it has more character chemistry than anything in this movie.
That's so sad. And that's what a part of why I said that Maki and Yuta should have had more of a thing, because there's the one shot of her blushing, and then we just transition to the finale of the movie. But like,
why is he in Kenya?
That is, I was really confused. I do not know. Why is he with the hair whip dude too? I have no clue.
I guess like he's a good guy now, and Gojo's with him, so he must be a good guy, unless they're pulling the greatest bait and switch of all time, and Gojo's actually a villain. But I highly doubt that.
That would be hilarious, but also nonsensical.
Gojo picks up where Gato left off.
So I guess we can just transition to, because it's hard to talk about Yuta's character without talking about the ending, because I think that's the moment where it really sinks in that, oh, what little, because I was a little invested in Yuta, mostly at the beginning of the movie, like the very beginning, where I was like, oh my god, there's so many places they could go with this. Starts to waver towards the middle, and then when the ending kicks in, you realize, oh yeah, the movie did not really know what to do with him. Because... Yeah, do you want me to just go ahead?
You can just go ahead.
Yeah, so the ending of the movie is basically he has Rika out, and he's using it to take on Geto Suguru, who wants to kill him in order to get Rika. And, he basically gives up all of himself in order to beat Geto. And he's like, listen, Rika, we can be together in heaven forever. I'll give up my life for you. We will just both fade away. And that's honestly a cooler ending than what we got, in a way.
It would have been a great way to... I mean, given everything that we could accomplish in this movie, if this was like the only thing we could change, it would make for a at least more complete arc of Yuta's character.
It absolutely would, because
it would provide a sense of closure, and then it could even give the season 1 cast of the first years going on second years now, to be like more attached to, or at least like have a respect for, a fallen comrade. That maybe
that would have been great.
Yeah, maybe they even see Yuji, and he's like, huh, you kind of remind me of him. In a cool way, and then we can figure out what they mean by that through this movie, instead of being so confused as to the whereabouts and the relevance of this rando.
Yeah, see, at least then, right, the idea would be that Yuta is overly... So there's this through line. I'm gonna put this in quotations. Through line with Yuta's character, which is basically that he can't get over the death of Rika. It's revealed that he was the one who cursed Rika, not the other way around. Because
actually, the whole time, he came from a line of super duper pooper scooper sorcerers.
That was such a funny reveal.
That he was just like, oh yeah, by the way. Yeah, but by the way, Gojo literally swoops in to ruin the narrative once again. This time, I'll give him credit. He found a new way to ruin the narrative, not by being the strongest, but by introducing fucking Deus Ex Machinas. Oh, by the way, Okkotsu, you actually came from like a long line of the greatest sorcerers of all time. You and I are actually blood relatives. That's why you're so powerful. I'm like, oh, okay.
Actually, Neon, you're gonna pop off when I say this. I'm coming around to your side on Gojo, man. This movie is me having my coming to Jesus moment with Gojo. Actually, this is, I think, the biggest point in favor of watching Zero before the anime, although that might negatively impact the anime.
I was actually...
Because Gojo's fights are completely tensionless when you've seen season 1 and know he's in no danger.
Yeah, okay, hold on. I was gonna say, Actually, yeah. To my own point that Gojo, I'm a Gojo hater. I'm on my anti-Gojo rhetoric constantly. Yeah, watch Zero before season 1 because I think this is a better introduction to Gojo before he gets ruined in season 1. Because at least if you watch this before season 1, you don't know exactly how strong he is. Like they make a couple mentions that he's the strongest in the movie, usually by Gato, but like they never establish it to the point where it's like, oh yeah, he can destroy Sukuna. Like don't even worry about it. And he fucking one shots literally everyone who even remotely dares step up to him, regardless of like what grade curse they are. Hey, here's some special grade curses. These are literally the most powerful curses on the planet. Oops, he just got bodied by Gojo in like 5 minutes, and he was holding back, so he could have one-shot him even sooner if he really wanted to.
Well, see, I think
in
Gojo
here,
is a more interesting character when he is the strongest, but this is not how you, at least not how I think you go about writing a character whose entire deal is that he's the strongest. Because like I said, I like wacky characters, and I think Gojo being the strongest lends to that. But at the same time, just having like a pure straight-up fight with him just ain't it.
Can you do you get what I'm saying about how this brief scuffle that he has with Miguel, the rope dude, would have been so much better?
Yes, I completely agree with that.
Watching it Zero before season without knowledge of what goes on in
the
season 1.
only issue with that though is that I would I think I'd be disinterested, slightly less disinterested, obviously, but disinterested for a different reason, which is that this movie doesn't really give you much of a reason to be invested in Gojo, in my opinion, in my open way.
I agree, but in that, by that same coin, they also don't like hype him up to the point where it's like, oh man, he's like so unbeatable. It's like you'll expect to see how strong he is, and you're like, and then you see him do the fighting, and he's like, oh wow, he's like pretty strong. And then you watch season 1, he's like, oh, he's too strong.
Actually, that is a good point. See, I do agree with that, and I think the fight, this part of the movie specifically, is better if you don't watch season 1 beforehand. Although I still maintain that watching that season 1 is a more natural introduction to the story at large. I'm still on that grind set.
What the fuck was up with Gato's family, by the way? Like, why did they get such cool introductions and, like, wacky powers, and then they just escape off-screen? Like, literally, we don't even get to see it happen. We just are told by Gojo, yeah, every single one of your family members got away.
They just escaped, bro. They just got out.
Wow, how satisfying. I can't wait to see him come back in JJK Season 2.
We got distracted from Yuta, so here, I'll try and direct the conversation back to him. So, we were tucked out of the good ending, this idea that, like, he couldn't let go, and, you know, that ended up being his undoing. And see, what I like about that ending is that it's ambiguous as to whether or not it's a happy or a tragic one. Now, granted, for it to work, they would have to, once again, have more of a through line with Yuta's character. You know, it'd still be flawed if that was how it ended. But I think it'd at least be thematically poignant. There would be a theme that they executed on in a lackluster manner, but it was like a coherent and interesting theme. This idea that this love, like, it's ambiguous as to whether or not Yuta believes in it, in an afterlife. It's ambiguous as to whether or not he thinks, you know, this is the end, or if he really will see Rika again. But he's willing to throw it all away because life without Rika is just that painful. And he's willing to have that slim chance that maybe, just maybe, we'll see each other again if I just kick the bucket, you know? And maybe we'll see each other.
Keep my friends alive.
Yeah, and it'll keep his friends alive too. That would have been interesting. That could have been so powerful. But no, he's actually part of the Super Duper Pooper Scooper clan. Well, I guess that lends itself to the ending that I'm describing. But after that, Rika gets uncursed because I guess he used up all her cursed power and undid it entirely. And so, they have their goodbye, and then, but here's the thing. Here's where I start to raise an eyebrow. It's established that, like, okay, so throughout this movie, there's the through line of guilt. By training at Jujutsu Academy, he starts to feel less guilty. At the very end of the movie, he realizes just how much of the narrative was his fault, because his inability to let go of Rika's death was what caused her to become attached to him, which makes him feel more guilty, because the maimings were technically his fault, because he was the one who wasn't able to let go. This causes him to feel a surge of guilt at the very last second. He does not have an arc for overcoming guilt, because it is undone at the very last second, and it just leaves you to ponder, what was the point of that? Why did I get invested in him undoing his guilt if he's just gonna have it all come back at the very last moment? That's kinda lame. I do not like
It's
that.
not your fault, bro.
See, it's not his fault, but at the same time, it's like, he should realize that over the course of the narrative. If we're not going to go for the tragic end, or I guess the bittersweet, melancholic end, rather. If we're not going to go for that, then have him, like, grow as a person. Don't take that growth away from us at the very last moment.
Yeah, it's not great.
It feels
Yuta's just not a
so
great character.
anticlimactic and, like... The film feels kind of pointless, honestly. In terms of Yuta's character arc, at the very least, it feels very directionless, and, like, Gege did not know what he was doing with that. And it kind of ties into something I said at the beginning in the first season 1 podcast, which is that I'm not sure if my boy Gege is gonna be able to execute on this theme of having a proper death. And this film kind of makes me worry a little more for that. Like, in the season 1 podcast, I was at least mostly convinced he'd do it right, because the show's good. This film kind of injects some more indecision into that.
Yeah, I don't know what a proper death is, but Yuta sure did not get one.
Yeah, I mean, he's still alive. He just retreated to Kenya, which is even worse than death if you think about it.
Oh god, he's gone quiet.
So yeah, that's about all I have to say about Yuta. He's kinda not that good.
Yeah, you can definitely see why when it came time to continue the story, he was like, I think it's time for a fresh coat of paint. But while this lends the first half of the movie to be, just rejected episodes of season 1, the second half, it gets a big shot of that Jujutsu Kaisen wacky antidote, that magic elixir in the form of Suguru Geto.
So it's funny you say that, because although I think the second half is weaker than the first half, because the first half I could be invested in Yuta because I liked the ideas it was going for, and that sort of trailed away in the second half where I started realizing, oh, it's not actually going to do anything with that, before the ending where I think it just completely dropped the ball. Admittedly, the thing that stops the second half from being a complete wet fart is Geto Suguru. Because I just want to hear him rant about those damned monkeys more.
Yeah, those goddamn monkeys ruining this country, ruining this planet.
Love me a good racist.
He's just unapologetically racist, and it's hilarious.
So he basically, Geto Suguru, he's a Jujutsu sorcerer supremacist. He hates humans. Like, literally, his introductory
Calls
scene,
them monkeys.
Yeah, he calls them monkeys, and then he, like, during his first scene at the temple, you know, he's healing this girl, and you're like, oh, he's not that bad of a guy. I wonder why he's the villain. And then the girl leaves the temple, and he's like, oh, I feel dirty. I've been with those monkeys too much. I need to, he has like disinfectant, and he sprays it on himself.
I love this one bit that is like lasts for only like 10 seconds, but is so memorable to me. I love he purposefully calls the mom the wrong last name, and like when she goes to correct him, he's like, no, I like Mrs. Sato more than Mrs. Saito, so you're Mrs. Sato now.
That moment was great.
That tells you all you need to know about him. He cures this female hentai protagonist with a curse that's been bothering her, and the reason he does this is because he by day is a monk that relieves people of their what they think are curses that are bothering them, and he is collecting them to consume and empower himself to build up his collection of curses. He hates all humans who can't use jujutsu. They're goddamn monkeys. I love how he divides them into two camps. There's the money collecting monkeys and the curse collecting monkeys. It's hilarious.
He's just so racist, and he's a great villain.
Yeah, I love how he much like in the season 1 counterpart or version whatever. He is fucking just goofing around with his family. I love how after was it before or after the one rich guy dies from all the curses that because he couldn't pay his money, does he and the friend of his that's at the temple take a selfie together to celebrate all the family being there?
I think slightly before. I'm not exactly sure. Yeah, it's slightly before.
Okay, I had to like pause the movie multiple times so I could take more notes about Gato and chronicle every single scene that he's in, because he steals the show. He steals the spotlight every time he's on frame.
He's like very goofy in a way, but at the same time is a little threatening.
He's more than a little threatening.
Well, yeah, he's obviously threatening when he needs to be.
Yeah, I just adore villains who can be goofy one moment and then on the drop of a hat be like the most terrifying thing in the world. I love his evil Joker grin that he's got. He's got a whole family of fucking weirdo sorcerers who all have their own unique little quirks, like this two girls who he saved at one point that I'm sure they'll get fleshed out more in the anime/manga, but as of right now, they just are more of concepts than characters. How they hang people and with ropes, and then one of them just like a typical teenage TikToker, or just a high school teen girl like that. OMG is like, this is so lame. I hate the fucking sticks. And then the one with there's just like this moody, quiet little doll carrying girl. It's a colorful cast of characters that he surrounds himself with, and he still manages to shine as the most out there one.
Like, OMG, this person I'm hanging keeps squirming around and making it difficult. This is so... Just stop it, bro.
Oh my gosh, shut the fuck up, boomer. It'll all be over soon.
Okay, now I need to see the version of her character that calls the people she hangs boomers. That would be great.
This is so totally not poggers.
Actually, no, yeah, that's what the movie is missing. She has to actually speak in Zoomer lingo.
Yeah, please. So, Gato and his crew invade Jujutsu High because he wants to wipe out all the non-Jujutsu sorcerers on Earth. He wants to kill all the humans because they are weak and they are halting mankind's evolution. So, Gato logically comes to the conclusion that, well, Jujutsu sorcerers are more powerful than humans, yet for some reason we insist on, making it necessary and a priority to protect the weak humans. That's fucking retarded. Why don't we just kill them, and then our strength is no longer capped. We can ascend to even greater heights.
Based eugenicist Gojo. And I like his plan where okay, so his deal is that he's collecting a bunch of curses and he sets up this time for an all-out war. And I actually really like the way that the show handles this, because at first you're like, well, you don't announce when you're gonna do a war. What the hell does that even, like, why would you do that? It's all part of the plan, because
it's all according to Keikaku.
Yeah, by announcing this, he is able to get a bunch of Jujutsu sorcerers mobilized to the cities where he's supposed to let out the curses. And he does, in fact, let out the curses. It's not a bluff. He does keep them stalled for a determined amount of time in order to go to Jujutsu High and kill Yuta. And I also like how Gojo is, like, so, like, almost sad about the fact that he has to kill Yuta. Like, oh, you know, you could have been so great with your Jujutsu powers, but no, you know, unfortunately, you're getting in the way of my plan. I do have to take Rika from you, because she's, you know, just made of cursed energy, the queen of curses.
Yeah, unfortunately, you had to side with the fucking monkeys!
God, I could totally imagine Gojo say it, like, just yelling.
Gojo has been banned from Twitch for saying the N-word.
Oh god, it's that one fucking image. Which one would get banned from Twitter first?
Yeah, we still need to do that. I actually really want to record that now that we have proper insight on Gojo.
That would be fucking hilarious. Just collect all the most racist anime characters. Which one says the N-word first?
Yeah, I love how if fucking Full Metal Alchemist Hitler is on that list, and then he's still not the this is a tricky one. He's not the clear-cut favorite. Yeah, Gaeto's doing his plan, and he's going to Jujutsu High, and he's gonna go fight Yuta. His friends try to fight him off, but to no avail. They get their shit pushed in, and that gets Yuta fucking pissed.
Yeah, so he has his big ol' shonen moment of, you fucking killed my friends, or you hurt them, whatever. You know, I'm gonna get revenge, you know, you don't hurt my friends. Yuta's, and this is a little interesting, I guess, like, he's like, I don't know if you're in the right or in the wrong, because I don't know nothing about this world, but all I know is, this is how I stay with my friends, and that's why I'm gonna kill you. What a powerful line, if only he had development.
Yeah, unfortunately the bro needed about 1 to 2 more movies worth of time to make this moment feel at least half as impactful as what they were trying to go for.
Not even in sheer time, but just in efficacy at developing him. But we've gone on about that long enough. The point is, Gojo, you know, they have a cool fight, and it is in fact a cool fight. It is a fun one to watch, animation popping off.
I love that set to a song with lyrics like a fucking AMV.
I do not actually remember the song, but I do remember the animation popping the hell off.
There was definitely at one point they were fighting over a song with lyrics that was like really kind of butt rocky, kind of Linkin Park-ish. You can absolutely, I can see this on, you know, late 2000s YouTube or early 2010s YouTube.
And after that, Gojo eventually, they have the shonen thing where, you know, he puts all his power into one attack and eviscerate, because he sends out like this special grade apparition, and, you know, he sends out all the cursed energy. Oh yeah, now I remember. He combines like a bunch of curses, like 4,000 of them together into one single attack that he's been
it's like his fucking cursed
time.
Spirit bomb.
Yeah, and that's when they have
on top of
the laser versus later meeting in the middle.
Yeah, on top of his own special grade curse that he summons. That I guess is just for show because it gets bodied instantly. And the big curse spirit bomb, and then Yuta teams up with Rika. And it says, I'll give myself to you, just lend me all of your strength. And Rika fires their love-powered Gallic gun, and Geto gets beat the fuck out.
Yeah. And
then he died, I guess. But then he shows up in season 1, so what's the deal with that?
Yeah, that confused me a lot. So, he's weak, he's wounded, he's running away.
He lost an arm.
Yeah, but then Gojo sees him. He's like, and they have a history together where, Geto back in the day wasn't a racist, but then something turned him to the dark side. And after that point...
And he started watching Andrew Tate and the Joe Rogan podcast.
Why the Joe Rogan podcast?
I don't know. I'm trying to think of
he
all,
went
like,
down the beauty pipeline.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of all, like, the male influencers that would imbue with some kind of the most, like, worst sense of toxic masculinity into him.
And, it sucks that it has to be that way. Gojo and him seem like almost like you can tell they used to have a really buddy pal relationship where they greet each other, in an almost casual, friendly manner. But at the end of the day, he gotta die, except not really. But I have no clue how that works.
Yeah, so when Gojo is saying, like, hey, do you have any last words, Geto? He tells him his last words that, no matter what... I love how even in death, he's like, no matter what anyone tells you, I want it to be known to you, my old friend Gojo, that I harbor no love in my heart for those goddamn dirty monkeys.
I did like that. Nearly popped off
even on his deathbed, the racist grind set never ceases.
He's just a puppet controlled by the spirit of racism.
So we hear a slash. Gojo says something to him, and Geto says, "Damn, bro, that's crazy." And then we hear it cut to black. We hear a slashing sound. We can only assume that Gojo killed him. I mean, I guess, but he shows up in season 1.
I can only assume something.
Did he let him go?
Happened.
Did he do some kind of thing to him to, like, spare him?
No clue. Get on this, theorists.
Yeah, MAPPA, come on.
And with that, I don't think I have much else to say other than Nanami gets the 5 Black Flash combo. I noticed that and thought it was funny.
Yeah, I did that too. I was gonna say, how hard did you pop off when both Nanami and Miwa showed up?
Miwa got a huge pop off from me. I screen capped every single shot with her in it. You know what this movie should have been? It should have been this story, but then make it double length, have the other half of it just be Miwa. And she's not doing anything particularly interesting. It's not like a plot or well-made story or anything. She's just existing.
Where is the 2-hour
world.
cut of Kasumi Miwa sitting in an office cubicle just doing, like, her daily chores?
Hey, it improved the movie, just saying. Would it be a better structured, better paced, better told story? Not really. Would it be better? Absolutely.
Because we didn't get watch Jujutsu Kaisen at least all the way until just recently. We both missed out on this movie being in theaters when it came out 2 years ago. But I can already tell how obnoxiously loud and how much cheering there would have been the second that Todo showed up on screen.
Yeah, that would almost certainly happen. Although I do feel like this movie would be, well, specifically the fights, rather, would be cool on the silver screen. I do kind of miss not having that experience. But at the same time, I wouldn't be able to get up to take a piss, and I have a tiny bladder, so that would be painful.
Yeah,
that's the theater experience every time for me.
You just go before the movie starts.
I do. You underestimate how my inability to drink a soda and just leave it in me for 2 hours.
So you gotta condition your body to just filter the water into the piss. I drink the water, it becomes piss. I drink more water to replace the piss. You gotta learn to train your body to filter that.
It replaces the piss.
Does it not? Is that not how it works?
I don't think that's how it works.
I mean, yeah, I'm skipping a few steps. But,
Okay, you're skipping
in
a
a
few
layman's terms.
Okay. Hey, it's like the Decuders video, the endless cycle. I drink water, my body rejects it, and then it asks for more water, like a whining toddler. I cannot stand for this.
Yeah, so how are we feeling about the movie as a whole?
This is tough. This is really tough. It's between a strong 6 to a light 7 to me. Somewhere around there. I feel like I'm leaning more towards a 6, honestly.
Yeah, I'm kind of feeling that way too. Like of the shonen anime movies that I've seen, well, granted, a majority of those is Dragon Ball, and that's not a fair comparison no matter how you slice. Especially if we're talking the super movies. Holy shit, this one doesn't even like. It's not a fair comparison, but you know, even still making the comparison, it can't hold a goddamn candle. But it just taken on its own merits, I feel like, okay, how about this? Maybe season 2, when we get to season 2 on the podcast, and we get to the flashback sequence with Gojo and Geto when they were in Jujutsu Tech. I wonder. I'm formulating this crackpot theory now. I wonder if that would have made for the more interesting prequel movie, and this would have made for a better, opener to season 2. Assuming, Yuta actually shows up in season 2 or something like that. At least sooner rather than later.
That might actually be true, because I feel like stuff with Gojo and Geto is just kind of a more interesting story than what was told here, and would have more of a narrative thrust to use in a film. Just spitballing, obviously, no clue what it actually ends up as. But, the current movie, it was entertaining. I wasn't... I know you were bored during the first half. I was not. I don't think there was... Well, the only time I was bored was during the Gojo fight scenes, where it was like, oh, flashy, but also I know he's in no danger. But
yeah, he was bodying that Miguel dude though. That was funny. He just straight jumped that man.
Yeah, but otherwise it is an entertaining enough time. I do think it is for the I mean, like I've been saying this entire time, it's almost brilliant at every turn. But, like, it's not. It's not quite there.
If we could just make a couple quick fixes, without maybe, like, changing, the entire structure of the movie, how would we go about it?
Alright, so, first of all, fix Yuta. If we're keeping the ending of the movie the same, first of all, foreshadow the stuff about him having a wacky family. But second of all, like, focus on the guilt, focus on the isolation, really hard sell just how foreign talking to people is to him, just how weak he is, and then really focus on the connecting line between him, slowly opening up to Maki, maybe have a little more romance going on there. Really also focus on him latching on to Rika's death, and tell that story more effectively than it was. You don't even have to up the runtime, I feel. I think there's a version of this movie with the same runtime that is a 9 out of 10. Just tell it better. That's the thing.
Yeah, I feel like you could take out the Inumaki thing, because you could tell that was just a straight episode of the show. The whole Yuta and Inumaki quest in the little shopping mall. And dedicate that to more of, like, hammering in Yuta's guilt about causing all of that pain to the people around him, and how he wants to just be left alone and isn't worthy of being loved, and then have his friends be like, hey, that's kind of stupid, and you're
I
a
just
pretty cool
realized
guy.
this. You know what this movie needs? This movie needs a montage scene.
Yeah, it does need a Makoto Shinkai Your Name level montage
It
scene.
absolutely. You know what? That's the problem with the movie. We needed that montage scene. That montage of after the first mission with Maki, where he realizes that, hey, maybe I have a place here. Maybe I can open up. We cut to more time spent with people. We see him opening up. And then cut to like more of
and
his
then the drums
struggles.
kick in. Kimi no sense till this day. Been looking everywhere for you.
Something like that, where it's like, after he spent so long of his life being hopeless, and he finally comes to terms with the fact that maybe I can be with people. Boom, montage scene. And then, after that we can focus more on his guilt. It's perfect. But otherwise,
Yeah, and then
we did not get that version, unfortunately.
yeah, and it's a damn shame that this turned out to be the weakest piece of Jujutsu Kaisen so far.
Yeah, it's not even close.
But who knows? Maybe season 2 will be even worse.
Don't tempt fate.
I doubt that. I really doubt that.
Hey,
I feel
maybe
like there's some-
with all the dimming and ghosting, it will be.
Yeah, well, that sometimes it just can't be helped.
And
But we won't ghost you, viewers, so please don't ghost us by making sure that you like the video. Head on down to the comments, tell us what you thought of the Jujutsu Kaisen Zero movie. Are we right about Yuta? Are we wrong about Yuta? Are you excited for him to show up at some point in the manga/anime Avengers Endgame style? Go ahead and leave us a comment down there, like the video, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an episode of the podcast. That'll do her for this episode of Castaway Anime. I'm Neon Manta,
I'm Crunchy Bagels.
and you'll see us next time.